Hey guys, so this is Sam and Derek from the Good Games with another Journey Into Nyx preview. Here we have Eidolon of Great Revel. 2 mana, 2/2. Whenever a player casts a spell with converted mana cost 3 or less, Eidolon of Great Revel deals 2 damage to that player. Um, a lot of people have been like speculating on this as a burn card, but I'm not exactly sure. I mean, Ash Zealot seems a lot better. Plus, it just hits you for 2 a lot of the time. And what you're trying to do in burn is like just erase them. And frequently, like with Mono Black specifically, the matchup is already so tight with Gray Merchants and Desecration Demons and stuff that you probably don't want to just like give them free damage. I don't know. What do you think?
I really like this card. There was speculation of it possibly making its way into Legacy due to the factor of, I guess, a card like that already exists.
And yeah, like Sulfuric Vortex or whatever. It deals 2 damage per turn.
No, that's something Pillar.
Okay, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
I can't remember the full name of it right now.
Sounds good.
And it pretty much, it seems like it would hose every deck in Standard at the moment. Every deck would get destroyed by it. So, with that being said, if it can find its way into something new that we don't know of yet with how Journey to Nyx is coming out, it can end up being a very strong deck because everything plays a lot of 3 mana or less spells right now because the format is pretty fast.
Yeah, I agree. So I think there's going to be some random week where everyone's just trying to beat Mono Black either by going under it or over it with like Sphinx's Revelation, which by the way gets hosed by this card. And that week, like if you're the guy playing Burning Earth's Mind Sparkers and Eidolons, you're gonna win a lot of games unexpectedly. That's all I have to say. So Silence of Believers is 2 black and 2 generic mana. Exile any number of target creatures and all auras attached to them, and the any number comes from Strive, which costs 2 and 1 black. Obviously, most people think this is going to be played in mono black, but they already have Hero's Downfall, and unless like auras and mostly bestow creatures become a large part of the format, I can't see this seeing much play. What do you think?
Guild does the same thing, but potentially has 3 mana to do, but can only target 1. People were thinking that may end up seeing sideboard play to deal with gods. It ended up it was not strong enough, and
It is.
so I don't quite know how this is going to play out. It's very good. It's just 4 mana for 1 target and then 7 mana for 2 targets, which just seems to be slightly on the weak end. It may see a 1 of sideboard or 2 of sideboard for that matter, but I don't see it main deck.
Right, I mean, if people come to the party with lots of Boon Satyrs and, like, Eidolon of Countless Battles or whatever, then it's obviously going to see play, but, like, if you're just talking about killing a Desecration Demon, I mean, you can do that for 2 mana. You don't need to do it for 4, you know?
Exactly.
So here you have Krufix, God of Horizons, 3 generic, 1 green, 1 blue. As all the other gods, it's indestructible. It needs 7 pips on your board of green and blue in order to turn into a 4/7. You have no maximum hand size. If unused mana would empty from your mana pool, that mana becomes colorless instead. So this card has a lot of confusion, basically just about how it works because it's like worded very awkwardly. You always think about like mana leaving and just disappearing at the end of your turn. But instead, what you're able to do are things like in Esper Control, for instance. Let's say you have 11 lands in play. At the end of your opponent's turn, you could float 11 mana. It would then all become colorless. And you would have that until the end of the game. You have that colorless mana to use. So, the entire game, you could just have this in play and just be floating excess mana and fire off like a Sphinx's Revelation for 30 to get back in it or something. And I think that's really cool. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to be used, though. Esper Control obviously doesn't really want this card. It could be a card in Bant, I guess. They don't have enough permanents to turn it on, so it'd be used entirely for the no maximum hand size and Sphinx's Revelation betterment. But there's that white-blue card in Dragon's Maze that, like, you got to name a card and your opponent couldn't cast it and it cost you, like, 2 less to cast it.
Council the Absolute.
Yeah, Council the Absolute. And that's all absolutely no play, so I don't know how much this is going to see. What do you think?
This god made me cry. I was looking really forward for this god. It's no maximum hand side. I really like that, except As soon as it becomes an issue, they're just going to de-sphere it, and it's going to get removed, and then you have the maximum hand size again. Or, at this point, I don't see anyone even bothering with that because its other ability is pretty weak. You're making big Sphinx revelations, and that's about the extent of what he can do. Krufix had a lot of potential with the other cards we saw. Granted, it does seem to synergize well with them, because they all now, if you look at it, is about flashing in, making a bunch of mana, and getting a bunch of cards. So now we finally figured out why everything was so random. As for him seeing play, he may just see like a 1 or 2 of, just because the factor he gives no maximum hand size, and for 5 mana you get a 4/7, because in green-blue there's Zagana, who practically almost turns it on immediately. So if something starts playing Zagana again because Bant becomes a thing again, then it may just see play as a 1-of just because Zagana is best friends with this guy.
So what I kind of want to see is Elvish Mystics, Sylvan Caryatids, Kiora's Followers, Kiora, Krufix, Prime Speaker Zagana, and World Spine Worm.
That's not happening.
You could... Okay, so theoretically you could go like Mystic, Caryatid, Mystic... This guy on turn 3, float all your turn 4 mana, turn 5 World Spine Worm. What do you think about that? Is that a little too adventurous?
Not happening.
Not, okay. I think it's happening.
You need at least Prophet of Krufix in there.
I mean, that's fine. We can play World Spine Worm on their turn. That just seems like more fun. Alright, and lastly, we have a Johnny, Mentor of Heroes. 3 generic, 1 green, and 1 white, 4 loyalty, +1 distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among 1, 2, or 3 creatures you control. The other +1, this Ajani has 2 +1s, which is very intriguing. You get to look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an aura, creature, or planeswalker card from among them and put it into your hand. The rest go on the bottom of your library in any order. And his ultimate is you gain 100 life. That's a arbitrarily large number. It would be a lot better if it was like a bajillion life, but I guess they couldn't theoretically print that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you can imagine like going like Mystic into Domri, into like Polukranos, into this, revealing Elspeth into Elspeth, you're going to win a lot of games. I just don't know how good it's going to be in the green-white deck, because the green-white deck isn't playing anything over Advent of the Worm right now. Although if you are interested in like playing a rampier green-white version, maybe with Armada Worm and Elspeth, then you could probably play this guy as a 4-of. Like, you could, I think, build around it the way you build around Domri, but I'm not exactly sure. What do you think?
When I first read this card, I really liked it, despite the fact I cannot stop laughing every single time I read its ultimate. As I look at it more, I look into the factor it's green and white. What are the other 2 major green and white planeswalkers that we have? There's Elspeth and there's Derik. Now, Ajani's +1 ability pretty much puts 3 points of power on the board, with the factor that you need to have another creature on the board in order to make it work.
Mutavault.
But Elspeth does that without any sort of clause attached to it. His second +1 ability lets you look at the top 4 cards of your library, take a creature, aura, or planeswalker, and put it to your hand, and then put the rest on the bottom. Now there's Garruk, which looks at the top 5 cards and puts all creatures to your hand. Plus his minus ability lets you just play creatures for free.
Right, and it's only 1 more mana, which when you're ramping isn't a huge deal.
So with that being said, if M15, the Derik doesn't get reprinted again, I can see him becoming good then. But as of right now, he just does the same thing that 2 other planeswalkers do better.
I definitely agree. So that's going to wrap up this edition of the Journey Into Nyx preview show presented by Sam and Derik. That was a really excited outro, actually. I wasn't expecting that. But yeah, as always, like, favorite, subscribe to the channel. We're putting one of these up next week as well, so we will see you then.